Hello everyone. A very good afternoon. Good afternoon to all of you. And it's a pleasure meeting all of you at the beginning of the semester. The Indic Studies Society was lying a bit low during the pandemic, due to the pandemic. And once again, the Indic Society is back with its sessions. And for this semester, the first session of this semester is today's event, which is basically a book discussion on Nithin Sridhar sir's book, that is Menstruation Across Cultures, a Historical Perspective. And it's actually an honor to have Nithin Sridhar sir amongst us. Nithin Sridhar sir, a brief description about a brief bio about sir is that he has a degree in civil engineering and has worked in the construction field for some time. He passionately writes about various issues such as development, politics, and social issues, to issues such as religion, spirituality, and ecology. He is currently the chief curator of Advait Academy, dedicated to the dissemination of Advait Vedanta. He was previously the editor of India Facts, a platform focused on Indian history and culture. He is based in Mysuru, Karnataka, and has authored 5 books till date. His first book, which is Musings on Hinduism, provided an overview of various aspects of Hindu philosophy and society. His latest book, which is called Ishopanishad, an English commentary, sheds light on the philosophy of the Upanishads. However, his most widely acclaimed book, which we will be discussing today, is Menstruation Across Cultures, a Historical Perspective, that examines menstruation notions and practices prevalent in different cultures and religions from across the world. And if I'm not wrong, this book actually began as a series of articles by Nithin Sridhar sir during the Sabrimala conundrum, and later on these articles were expanded on, and then it turned into this book, which we'll be discussing today. So I would I before beginning, just a brief explanation about how the session is going to be conducted. First, sir will be taking time, something around 35 to 40 minutes, to give a brief overview of what the book is about, the entire, and he'll actually take us through the entire book. And after that, we'll start with our interactive session, which is basically Q&A format, and I'll be asking 2 3 questions which I might have, and then the other people can also come in, so you can just type out the questions that you have in the chat box, and I'll take it up with the sir. So let us begin then. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much for this invitation, and I'm very glad, very happy to be here. Always feel good to speak to the young bloods of the country, so to speak. And this is a very tricky topic, and but something which is very necessary. So, as you rightly said, I started the curiosity started when the Shabarimala thing happened, and there was a media narrative about the one narrative was about the temple entry itself, but the sub narrative was that the narrative that Hindu Dharma, our culture, the Bharatiya Sanskriti, as a whole, mistreats women, looks down upon them, or treats them as unclean, treats them as dirty, treats them as morally impure. So many things were presented that the Hindu Dharma somehow degrades men. So that was the message. Because in the context of menstruation, this was said. So then I thought, let me just investigate whether this is the case or not. Because you cannot say either yes or no without actually investigating. That would be merely an opinion, not an informed opinion. So this happened back in 2015, 2016. And then, as you said, I wrote a series of articles and then expanded them over the next 2 3 years. Expanded them into this book. So I have this book with me. This is the one. Yeah, you can see it. Yes, You can see the book on my virtual background also, and it's available on Amazon and other platforms. So, why this book? I already explained. It's basically an outcome of investigation into the Hindu practices primarily. But when I began writing the book, I realized that that is not enough. To truly understand to put the things in context, I need to expand the scope of the book. So I studied over the 2 years from 2016 to 2018. I studied menstruation practices and beliefs across the world in other Indic religions such as Buddhism, Jainism, Sikhism, and Abrahamic religions such as Christianity, Judaism, Islam, ancient civilizations with whom we share a lot of affinity, such as a Greek civilization, the Roman civilization, the Mesopotamians, the Egyptian civilization, as well as many indigenous communities, the so-called tribal communities from across the world, the communities in the North America, in the Southern America, in Africa, in Southeast Asia, so on and so forth. So this book is a kind of a bird's eye view on the world practices and beliefs related to menstruation. But this is done through, when you read through the book, two perspectives will emerge, two aspects of it will emerge. One is the aspect of impurity, which is present across the world and not something unique to Hindu Dharma. And another is aspect of sacredness, sacrality. And the interesting findings that I did was this sacredness was associated especially in Hindu Dharma with menstruation, as well as in ancient civilizations such as Greek, Rome, etc., all polytheistic civilizations. But it was completely missing in Abrahamic religions such as Christianity and Islam. So this is very important finding. This is a very important conclusion or finding of the book because it has great relevance on the discussion. I won't be going through chapter by chapter overview of the book. I will be focusing on the Hindu Dharma part, but I'll be doing a particular discussion from a particular perspective so that with this knowledge, then you will be able to better appreciate them. So I'll be sharing some slides in between so that and pursue from there. Let me begin my screen share. Is this visible?
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Okay, fine. So can you see this? This is a tweet from 2019. This is a tweet from US Embassy in Nepal. During in the context of this festival, Dashain Tihar and Chat Parba in Nepal, because Nepal is also a predominantly Hindu country. So this tweet is very interesting. See the image here. You can see that the family is doing the puja inside the room, but a girl is outside and she is just taking a peek. And somehow you feel that she's being kept out. She's being, she wants to do the puja. She has this devotion, but she's zabardasti bahar rakhi hai kind of feeling. And somehow we all get the notion of how women are being discriminated. And you see the dialogues here, wishing you and your family a menstrual restriction free festival, a menstrual restriction free. So basically the narrative that is being built here is simply uh, this, that there is somehow this kind of practices, the menstrual practices that we do is problematic. So, so what is the basic conclusion of such? What this is just one example. You will see this routinely in the advertisements, routinely in some of the YouTube videos and all those things. How do I pause the share?
So there must be an option in the toolbar of stopping the sharing screen.
Yeah, I'm just trying to see this. For some reason, yeah, stop. For some reason, I'm not seeing it.
I
Okay.
I just did it. I just did it.
Okay, fine. But otherwise, I have to keep doing it again and again. So basically, there are three kinds, three sub narratives under this. What they say is one that the Hindu practices surrounding menstruation. For example, what are these practices? Many of us, especially the women in the audience, will be aware either they may be practicing something or they may have seen their mothers or grandmothers practicing at their own, which they have rejected themselves. So practices such as seclusion, a limited kind of seclusion, which is no longer practiced, especially in urban settings. That women used to uh, sit in a separate room during those 3 days within the house or outside the house in a separate room. Or what is now practiced more prominently is that women don't go to temples during their monthly periods, or they don't visit any puja part जो regularly होता है अगर उस समय में if you have periods you don't visit it. Or there were other practices such as women did not cook, and other lifestyles, something that restricts their normal way of life. So the narrative is the popular narrative in popular culture is that these restrictions are because women are treated as impure during those 3 days. Ritual impurity, which is impure. Because of this, it means the implication is that first of all, this practice is superstition, as that Nepal image showed, menstruation free festival. So because it is a superstition, it's an outdated practice, we should remove it. So it is a blind belief, it's a andhashraddha. And second, because menstruation is called as impurity, it is degrading to women. It is somehow making her inferior. And this inequality, inferiority has to be removed. So this is the narrative. But is it really true? As I said, the notion of impurity is present across the world, in all cultures, in most traditions. Most, I will say, not all. But does it mean that the meaning and connotation and the theological basis of all traditions see this notion of impurity in the same way? The answer is a no. You'll read the book, you will actually appreciate this answer. I'll be elaborating a bit here, but the answer is a clear no. But before I come to that, I take up this notion of impurity, which I'll be doing that. I just want to share a few slides on how Hindu Dharma actually uh, perceives, in what context, in what theological framework does Hindu Dharma perceive menstruation. Just a few slides on that, and let me start again. Yeah. So menstruation is, of course, a natural biological process that women undergo major portions of their life, and owing to its connection to fertility, motherhood, etc., it has come to be closely associated with womanhood itself, something that makes women distinct from men at different levels. In recognition of this distinction, this biological reality, Indian religious and cultural traditions, especially the Hindu religious and cultural traditions, situate menstruation within the larger canvas of what is called as Sri Dharma, and understand it within the context of Sri Dharma and how it defines femininity and womanhood. Just a bit more about Sri Dharma, because I don't know how many of you are actually familiar with this concept. So I have been mentioning about Hindu Dharma, Hindu Dharma. Our name is Sanatana Dharma. But what is this term Dharma means? Dharma means dharayate iti dharma. Dharma is that which upholds, that which sustains. So what does upholding here mean? This is just a crash course on what dharma means. I won't go into details. You can read my book Samanya Dharma. It is also available on Amazon. It's purely on defining and understanding dharma. So dharma refers to all those actions and lifestyle choices that facilitate an individual to attain abhyudaya and nishrayasa. So what does upholding means? Dharma upholds an individual. Dharma refers to an action, our choices, our lifestyle, which upholds us, means which gives us abhyudaya nishreyasa. Abhyudaya means material welfare, welfare in the sense of providing artha and kama and punyam, punarjanmam, and all those things come. Better life here, better life after here in a different, in Swarga Naraka, as we say, and as well a better life in your next life. Nishreyasa means ultimate emancipation, the spiritual welfare, overall welfare. So dharma upholds an individual by giving overall well-being. That is, if your actions are dharmic or it's in alignment with dharma, then it means it is giving you, it will take you towards overall well-being. What then Stri Dharma means? Stri Dharma means dharma concerning women, or those actions, those duties and lifestyle choices that facilitate an overall well-being of women. These are specifically duties and choices rooted in the notion of femininity, the notion of womanhood, and are unique to women and facilitates them to overall well. So not all duties, all actions, all dharmas are Stri dharmas. There are some Purusha dharmas, and then there are Stri dharmas. Just like we have duties in the context of a king, duties in the context of father and the children, there are similarly duties is a very surface level translation. In some context, dharma means duty, some context it means justice. So context changes. There is no single English term to translate dharma. But in the context we are discussing, in this three dharma means all those actions, the lifestyle choices rooted in the femininity that help women to attain overall well-being. So what does that mean then? It means that Sri Dharma refers to, as I just said, actions and duties that are rooted in womanhood, enriches the feminine identity of women, empowers them, facilitates them to respect their own biological and physiological needs, as well as psychological needs, and most importantly, helps them to live a life in sync with their femininity and achieve self-actualization and self-realization through this path. So aligning life according to Sri Dharma implies then that women does not deny her womanhood, she does not pursue an utopian genderless identity or a masculinized identity for herself, and does not want to escape her biology, but instead she will respect and celebrate her womanhood and all that entails in. I'll tell you this paragraph, why this paragraph is very important. Today, the narrative in the name of uh, you know, in the name of gender equality is that it is taking women, it is asking women to give up her feminine nature and become more and more masculine. One example I'll give you is with respect to how these ads related to the the menstrual pads, sanitary pads is. You will see some women who will start using the pads and then uh, going running, jumping, and doing everything, becoming the great achiever. First of all, one can become a great achiever irrespective of whether one is using the pads or not. That is a different issue. But the narrative here is somehow she needs to get over the limitations placed by menstruation. That is, menstruation is being seen in this context as something limiting, something obstructing the success of the menstruation, which is a biological process of women, which is part of her femininity, which is very sacred to her, which is something very personal to her, something intimate to her identity as a woman, is being seen as something negative, something that needs to be overcome. That is, it is these ads and popular culture is asking women to masculinize us. But Sri Dharma does not do any of it. It instead empowers women by making them to feel at home with their own identity, with their gender, and respecting that and celebrating. So locating menstruation and menstruation related practices within this framework of Sri Dharma, that is how it is posited in our Shastras, in the Dharma Shastras, and in the Ayurveda, so many other things. So this locating menstruation within the framework of Sri Dharma not only imply that one respects and celebrates it, but also that one recognizes menstruation and menstruation practices as Rajo Dharma. See, Rajo here refers to menstruation. I'll just explain that in a while. Rajo Dharma means the menstruation practice or lifestyle practices to be adopted during menstruation is a dharma in itself. It is not something that is the restrictions that I mentioned, not going to temple, not doing puja, not cooking, or staying within a separate room, seclusion, partial seclusion. These are all not meant to oppress women, not meant to degrade women, not meant to somehow restrict her welfare or prevent her from achieving success. But these are all dharma. These are all lifestyle practices suggested for her own well-being, overall well-being, a well-being at the level of the health, as we see from the Ayurvedic text, well-being at the level of religious and spiritual merit as well, as we see from Dharma Shastra. So overall well, and and as a Rajo Dharma, it's a full-fledged religious practice in itself, which imparts punyam, which is karmic merit, and a sacred process in itself. So menstruation itself is a sacred process. Can you stop the share now for a second? Yeah. I hope you're able to follow what I have been saying here, because this context is very important to understand even the notions of impurity, which I'll be deliberating, I'll be explaining it now, because the meaning of impurity changes from culture to culture. English term impurity cannot actually define the senses in all cultures. So we need to understand that. So in Hindu Dharma, contrary to all this propaganda, menstruation and menstruation related practices are seen within the context of Sri Dharma as something which is facilitating women to attain overall well-being. When I say overall, that the key term is overall. Abhyudayan Shresa. Well-being in this world, well-being in the context of the social existence in this world, as well as well-being in the sense of spiritual accomplishment. So it is meant to help her facilitate, maintain her health, mental health, physical health, biology, and assist her biology. It also help to help her to appreciate her biology, see menstruation as a positive process, as something as a celebratory process, as a cosmic process even. So that is the interesting part, which is some completely missing in the modern school-based, textbook-based, scientific, so-called scientific narrative on menstruation, which reduces it to into merely a biological phenomenon, wherein every month, because of non-fertilization, the menstrual blood containing the unfertilized egg and many other things come out. That's it. Yes, that is there. That is not rejected in a Hindu narrative. Ayurveda and all, they are very clear what happens during menstruation. But that is not the only side. There's much more than that. There's much more meaning to it. So what the so-called scientific narrative has done is to demean, is to make all these practices, all these biological processes as becoming lifeless, valueless, meaningless entities. So when as a woman, if you don't see your biological process as something meaningful, then you start resenting it. That is where the commercialization and of the products such as sanitary napkins come. They are utilizing this resentment, asking you to masculinize yourself by overcoming the so-called limitations put by menstruation. So this is a, and this is not just my view. I have quoted scholars even from the West who have realized the dangers and the limitations of the scientific narrative. And I have a small chapter at the end of the book on this menstruation and modernity. So just moving Further, let me just share the slides again. Yeah. So the key ideas, there are many things I want to say, but there is no time to say all those things. But the key ideas, if you ask, how did these key ideas come to Hinduism? What is the basis? I will just say here that it is in the Veda itself. The core Shastra, the core text of Hindu Dharma, it is in the Vedas itself this idea comes. But I have not included all the references here. You have to read the book wherein I have given a very beautiful story of Indra and how Indra's story is associated with menstruation. But no time to go there in this session. The key ideas associated is, of course, one is impurity, which is in Sanskrit is called as ashaucha. The second is self-purification process, menstruation as a self-purification process. This is other side of the coin. On one hand, menstruation is considered as ritual impurity. On the other hand, it is considered as a self-purification process. You may ask, how is it possible? And I will answer it quickly as we proceed further. Then there is the notion of tapasya or austerity, the notion of menstruation as a period of rest, and menstruation as a period of celebration. So all this different kind of ideas, different perspectives are associated with menstruation in Hindu Dharma. It is not just that women are degraded, women are looked down upon as dirty. That is a propaganda created. That is not the Hindu view. That is not the Hindu view as available either in the textual tradition or in the practice as it used to happen in pre-colonial society. So what is this? Let me tackle the elephant in the room, the notion of impurity. I have been mentioning that from the beginning of this session. Let me first explain what impurity means in the Hindu context. Then I will take up the second part of the question. How did the modern narrative come about? So in Hindu texts, in the Dharma Shastras, Ayurveda and all, the Sanskrit term for menstruation is, there are many terms, of course. One of the term is Rajashrava. Another term is Rajaswala. Rajashrava means flow of Raja. Rajashrava means overwhelming overflow of Raja or something like that. So basically, menstruation is a flow of Raja. What is this Raja then? See, our ancestors are use the terms very carefully. And these individual terms are packed with different layers of meaning. Raja means blood, and hence Rajashrava means flow of blood. And that is obvious. There is a flow of menstrual blood, continuous flow of menstrual blood for during those 3 days. But Raja also refers to Rajoguna. It refers to Rajasic Shakti. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with the notion of Guna, Trigunas. At least some of you will be. Bhagavad Gita speaks about it, Sankhya speaks about it, that there are three gunas, Sattva guna, Rajo guna, Tamo guna. Sattva guna stands for equanimity, tranquility, balance. Rajo guna stands for action, Rajo guna stands for motion, uh, activity, etc., energy. Tamo guna stands for dullness, inertia, and so on and so forth. So these are the three gunas. Each of us are endowed with these three gunas. And at different moments in life, different gunas predominate. There are some people in whom Sattva guna is very predominant. Most of the times they situate themselves, they act from the Sattva guna, they act truthfully, they act in equanimous sense, they don't get agitated emotionally. Some people act from they are predominantly Rajasic. You will see they will become very emotional, but they are also very energetic, very enthusiastic. And some people are full of dullness, laziness. Most of us are a mixture of all these gunas and they manifest in different way. So when we speak about Rajashrava, it is flow of blood as well as flow of Rajoguna. So what is this Ashaucha means? We have been using English term impurity. But let us now use the Sanskrit term, the technical term in the Shastras to designate the 3 days period. It's called Ashaucha. Ashaucha means ritual impurity, but Ashaucha also means incompetency for certain actions. Vaidika, Agamika, Karma. Let us understand this a bit more deep, and this is vital. I have a whole chapter on this, on the notion of Ashaucha in the book. Now, modern science, we all know that we are this body, this is physical body. But our Hindu philosophy says, our Vedanta says, yes, we have this physical body, but we have 3 layers of the body, 3 different bodies. This is not the only one. The physical body is called as Stula Sharira or Annamaya Kosha. Then we have subtle body, which is made up of Pranamaya Kosha, that is 5 pranas which control the life energies such as prana, prana, apana, vyana, udana. These all control important activities in the physical body, but they exist in the subtle body, which is non-physical. That is the breathing process, the inhalation, exhalation, excretion, and circulation. All these are controlled by this prana, life energy. And then we have the mind, the manomaya kosha, which is distinct from this physical and the vital. Now, we can speak about Shaucha as well as its opposite Ashaucha in at all the 3 levels. Shaucha means cleanliness, purity. The Shastric view is that if you want to do any activity, there are certain competencies that make you eligible for that act. And that is there even in our secular matters. For example, if you want to pursue PhD, you ought to follow pass out on that GATE or UGC NET exams, right? So that is the eligibility criteria. A doctor cannot simply become an engineer, right? Or engineer a doctor. Similarly, all actions, all activity has certain criteria, especially the ritualistic, the religious actions, which are the Vaidika, Agamika based actions. For that, one of the criteria that gives competence is Shaucha or purity. And this purity is at all the 3 levels of physical, vital, which is the level of the pranas, and the mind. So, what is Shaucha in the context of physical? It is physical hygiene, no form of excretion. So, for example, when we visit a temple, we wash our hands and feet before going inside the temple. Or when we sit for a puja, usually we take a bath before doing the puja. So this is hygiene at the physical level, the shaucha at the physical level. This gives competency to perform that activity. Similarly, at the level of the vitality, at the pranamaya kosha, must be a balance of the pranas. Here, balance does not mean all the pranas, prana, apana, vayu, udana, etc., have to exist in same proportion. It means they have to be in some form of dynamic equilibrium as they are supposed to be in a certain condition. And calmness of the mind. At the level of the mind has to be calm, carefree and calm without agitation. That is Shaucha, and that gives competence. The reverse is Ashaucha. What is happening in the monthly periods? There is a continuous flow of blood. No matter whether you use tampon, you use sanitary pads, they are blood managing mechanisms, but they do not stop blood. You may take some pills to stop the blood, that will ruin your biological process and your health. That's a different issue. But when the periods happen, the blood is flowing. So at the physical level, there is no shaucha, right? This is obvious. Everybody agrees that at the physical level, there is no purity, there is no cleanliness because blood is continuously flowing. And blood is also the carrier of energy. Blood carries rajasic energy from the body outside. During menstruation, what is happening? The apana vayu, as I said, there are 5 kinds of prana, 5 kinds of vayu that controls all the bodily activity. The function of the apana vayu is excretion, removing all the entities from the body. It includes the excretion, it includes stool, urine, as well as menstrual blood. So during menstruation, during this 3 day period, the Apana Vayu is in a heightened condition and it is moving downwards. And it is full of Rajasic energy. So at the level of pranas, there is imbalance. That is, there is no equilibrium. Apana is in a heightened condition and Rajas is in a there. Rajasic energy is. And at the level of the mind, there is internal passions, anger, irritation, mood swings. Women know this experientially. Some may not be experience this, but many women experience this. During this 3 days period, they have severe mood swings, irritation, anger, so many. So this means that they, because of this heightened condition of rajas, they are called as ashaucha. Ashaucha or impurity in the context of menstruation simply refers to the biological or to the physiological fact of their three shariras, three kinds of shariras, that there is a heightened condition of rajas, as a result of which they become incompetent, they become unsuitable, uneligible to perform certain actions. At the same time, certain actions also become unsuitable, unhealthy to them. For example, they become incompetent to perform religious activities, be it going to doing a puja or going to temple or whatever it is. Can you switch off the screen share now? So those activities, religious activities, they become ineligible. But there are other activities such as physically straining oneself. For example, as the advertisement says, go for a running competition or a swimming competitions, or doing too much exercise or work, physically exertive work. Even cooking is a physically exertive work. Doing such activities are not good for their health. So those activities become uh, not good for them during that period. Hence, they are prohibited. So the prohibition or the restriction placed is not because of some form of moral degradation, moral judgment associated with it, but merely because of the fact that she is in a heightened condition of rajas. As a result of it, some actions becomes improper for her, improper in the sense not good for her, not beneficial to her, and she becomes ineligible for some other act. That's it. This is called as impurity in Hindu Dharma. So Hindu Dharma, impurity or ashaucha means non-vitality during that period because of heightened period condition of raja. Similar views are found in Greeks, ancient Greeks. There they call this they have this concept of miasma and catharsis. Catharsis corresponds to our notion of shaucha as something which imparts vitality to people, vitality to perform action. But their opposite is miasma, and they consider menstruation as miasma, which makes them incompetent for certain actions. If this is the case, then the question is, where does the English term impurity gain the negative connotation when it comes to what is the negative connotation? That when we hear the term impurity, menstruation, menstruating women are impure, all the academic papers, medical papers, you will see this narrative across the board. Hinduism considers menstruating women as impure, 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 impure. So the first thought that comes to us is somehow women are being degraded. They are made to feel inferior when they hear, when they read this, or there is a moral narrative here that they are somehow morally inferior. So how does this moral narrative comes? So when I studied this aspect, I saw that to my surprise and shock, you may say, that it comes from Christian theology. Why is it so? English is a language of Western culture, and Western culture is rooted in the Christian worldview. Whether we like it or not, this is the truth. And in the Christian theology, when I studied the Bible and when I studied the other medieval works, I found out that in Christian theology, I don't know how many of you are aware. You might be aware of this, the story about how Adam and Eve were in the Garden of Eden, and God has forbidden to eat a certain fruit from the tree of knowledge, and because you know, they were made and they developed this desire because of the snake who told them. First, Eve developed the desire, and then she made Adam, and they both of them ate the fruit from the tree. So they were removed from the Garden of Eden. They were made to fall. So this is called as fall of men as a result of original sin. So both men and women fell to this plane as a result of the sin of eating that apple. And their theology says because it was the Eve, the first woman who made Adam to commit this sin, she was punished in addition to throwing them out of the Garden of Eden. That punishment was that as a result of this, every month women will undergo menstruation as part of this punishment, and hence the women are perceived during their menstruation, their 3-day periods, they are perceived as partaking in the sinfulness of that original sin, partaking in the punishment in that original sin. All these are detailed with great references from the original sources as well as scholars from the West who studied this in my book. So, men's then and interestingly, Christians call this as impurity. They took the notion of impurity from the Greeks and redefined it, reformulated, but retained the terminology of impurity, language of the impurity. So when we think of impurity as moral degradation, impurity as some form of sinfulness, that is cause that can be traced to Christian theology. And it is not just a conjecture or speculation. This was the ground reality, so much so that on the grounds of menstruation being sinfulness, menstruating blood being blood denoting sin, they were feared in the medieval Europe, and witches. You might have heard about the annihilation of the witches. The burning of the witches. So these witches were specially connected to menstruation. They were thought to utilize the power of the menstrual blood to cause magic. And due to this negative narrative around menstruation, by some accounts, millions of women were burned and killed by designating them as witches. So this negative narrative in the West, in Europe, in medieval Europe, had a real life consequences in the form of burning of the witches. We don't see that in India. So then how can we, in Indian Hindu history, we don't see such a happen. So then how can we draw a conceptual understanding that are alien to Hindu Dharma and then define Hindu Dharma by using that concept? So that is the problem. So we define menstruation as ashaucha, but that simply means a heightened condition of rajas. It has no moral connotation. So much so that one of the Dharma Sutras say, women by entering a temporary period of impurity or ashaucha for 3 days, they remain ever pure. This is the exact word in that Dharma Sutra. Women are ever pure. They are always in purity. By entering 3 days of impurity, they're able to remain always in purity. What that means is menstruation is seen as a self-purificatory process. Ayurvedic texts say that the menstrual blood during the periods, the toxins in the body called ama is being removed from the body. The Manusmriti says that when this menstrual periods is able to free women from unintentionally from the sins or from papam or the adharma committed in the mind unintentionally. What are the adharma committed by the mind unintentionally? But that sometimes we feel jealous about somebody else. We want to harm somebody else, but actually we don't do it. But we, in jealousy and anger, we feel like that. These kind of things menstruation removes, women become free of these papam, these sins. This is not a Abrahamic sin. I am just using the translation. What I mean is karmic demerit. So just imagine. So what for men folk, this facility is not available. We have to perform lot of tapasya, lot of puja, lot of prayaschitta to attain to become free of our papam, our adharmic activity. So what comes naturally for women, men have to put lot of efforts to achieve. So this is the utility, this is the dharmic religious utility of menstruation. It is seen as a self-purificatory process. It is ritual impurity, yes. It keeps women ineligible from certain religious activity, yes. But at the same time, it purifies them, frees them from papam. Third, it itself is a tapasya. The menstrual restrictions that we discussed, not going to temple, seclusion, and all those things, they are all forms part of tapasya. When you do tapasya, you take on certain restrictions on your normal life. So that is same principle is acting here. Menstruation itself is a austerity, itself is a religious activity, itself is a dharmic activity, hence called as rajodharma. And finally, it is of course a period of rest. Ayurveda says that you have to take rest. Should not do physical exertive activity. You should not be mentally stressed during those 3 days. You have to take rest. You have to be happy. And so seclusion is for rest. So, and finally celebration, because I'm almost over my time of 40 minutes. I'm trying to wrap it up fast. I'm not showing the presentation. Celebration is important aspect. There are 3 or 4 aspects in how Hindus celebrate menstruation. The most first one is important one is menarche. Now we will get lesson. You don't get to see this much, but at one point of time, just even 200 years back, across India, when girls attained puberty, when the first blood came, first the menarche happened, there was a huge festival, huge celebration at home. Even today in Tamil Nadu, in Karnataka, this happens. In Tamil Nadu, in some communities, it is so huge. It is like a half marriage. This celebration gives them positivity. The women are treated like a goddess during that celebration. The small girls, they're given, all their neighbors, all the relatives visit them. They give them sari, they give them many sweets and other things to eat. Many gifts are given to them. A puja is done. So many things are done. So it's a big celebration. And such a celebration now that is almost wiped out in the northern India. But it was practiced in northern India as well. It was practiced not across the communities. All the kinds of communities used to practice. So this kind of celebration gives. So we celebrate menstruation, and we consider it a sacred process. That is why we are celebrating it. Otherwise, why will we celebrate? And another area where we see this celebration is we have many different devatas, many different devis who are specifically associated with menstruation. For example, in one of the Dharma Shastras, the Dharma Sindhu says if there are some problems with menstruation, there are certain doshas are there. To remove that dosha, you have to do a particular kind of puja wherein a particular form of Gauri is worshipped. Why? Because that Gauri is considered as a deity of menstruation. Similarly, we have this Kamakya. Most of you are aware. In Kamakya, the great Ambubachi festival happens every year, wherein the Divine Mother undergoes the 4-day yearly menstruation, yearly periods, and a red water comes out of her yoni, which is taken as prasada. Similarly, in Odisha, there is a Raja Parva. The Raja is menstruation in Odia also. Festival of menstruation wherein Harachandi is worshipped, Bhumi Devi is worshipped. During those days, the Bhumi Devi is given a 3 days rest. No kind of agricultural activities which gives physical burden on the earth is carried on those 3 days. Similarly, during the Ambabachi festival, for 3 days, the temple is not, door is not open. The Devi is given rest. In Karnataka, among Tulu communities, there is a Keddasa festival wherein earth, the Bhumi is again considered as going yearly festival, menstruation, yearly menstruation. In Kerala, we have certain Parvati temples wherein every few months on the sadi of the mother, the vigraha, the sadi that wears, there will be blood-like spots. Upon examination, it is determined that she has entered a 3-day period of seasonal menstruation, and she is secluded. She is separated from her male consort for the 3 days. The women of the village stay outside her chamber to give her company for those 3 days. After 3 days, she is taken to the Triveni, the sacred river beside the temple. She is given a bath and brought back and joined together with her husband. So this is how we celebrate. We have festivals, we have temples, we have deities, and we have Rajo Samskara that I just mentioned, Menarche festival. Menarche is a ritual. And this Rajo Samskara has parallels with Upanayana Samskara for the men. It imparts them purity. So many things are there. When you read the book only, then you will be able to appreciate this. But the point I am trying to make is, from this it is very clear that we do not associate negativity with menstruation. Even the notion of ritual impurity is not negative. It is merely a statement of their bodily and their mental and their vital condition, that there is a heightened condition of rajas that makes them ineligible for performing certain actions. That is fine, because the menstruation and menstruation related life practices called as Rajaswala Dharma or Rajaswala Paricharya in Ayurvedic text, they are themselves a dharmic practice. They are themselves a tapasya or austere practice. They are themselves a religious practice, observation, a vrata. And then the Ayurveda, I don't have time, but Ayurveda, I have a whole chapter on Ayurveda. Ayurvedic texts clearly say that these lifestyle practices are for the benefit of the health of the woman. Because the Tridoshas play havoc if their equilibrium is destroyed. It has to be maintained. It is for the health of the woman. Hence, certain lifestyle practices are given. So, before concluding, the last points I want to make is, as I said, in the modernity, the modern narrative, the school curriculum narrative, or the modern narrative in the popular culture is very problematic. It reduces menstruation to merely a physical phenomenon, a biological phenomenon, without any meaning, without any value. So makes it valueless. It prevents a woman from deriving value out of it, deriving a cultural meaning, a personal, intimate meaning, a religious meaning, a spiritual meaning out of it. It alienates her from her own cultural traditions, her own identity. It alienates her from her own femininity, because the natural consequence of this this so-called scientific valueless narrative is that, look, because it's a biological process and it is hampering your growth, hampering your success. So here there is pills, here there is tampons, here there is pads. So use this to overcome menstruation, use this to transcend menstruation, use this to transcend your femininity and become a male. So that is the kind of narrative, that is the kind of brainwashing that is happening without even our realizing it. And this is what is inducing shame towards menstruation. They accuse Hinduism of introducing Indian culture as introducing notion of shame regarding menstruation, but that is not true. What they are calling as shame in the cultural context is actually shyness. None of us are actually comfortable to speak about things that are very personal to us, very intimate to us, with everybody. We may discuss with it with our immediate family or friends, but not with everyone. So somebody some researcher comes to school and asks the girl students about menstruation, they will naturally feel shy. But that shyness is not shame. If it was not, it was shameful, then why would we celebrate menarche? Why would we, you know, have deities who undergo menstruation? And the village women of Odisha, when they were interviewed, they said, my menstruation is connected to Devi's menstruation. It is a cosmic process. If I don't follow my menstrual lifestyle, then I am affecting the cosmic order. This is not outcome of shame. On the other hand, we have products like Stay Free and Whisper. Just imagine, and in US we have products such as Freedom. Just think for a second about the names. Freedom from what? From menstruation, freedom from your femininity. Stay free. Staying free from what? From your femininity, because menstruation is inseparable part of femininity of a woman. Whisper. What are you whispering about? Does not whispering means that it is something to be hushed, to be spoken in low voices, to be not discussed in open? So is this not inducing shamefulness into the listeners and viewers and users of the product? So I leave you with these thoughts, and I hope many of you, some of you, even one of you, go back and read my book. I'll be happy. And when you read, share your thoughts, give a review on Amazon. You can write to me if you have any questions. And again, thank the Yashovardhan ji as well as the whole Jindal University for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts. Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha.
Thank you so much, sir. So it was a really wonderful talk, and a really wonderful overview from your side of what the entire book is about. And I guess all the parts of the book have been touched upon, although briefly. Now soon I'll be opening up the floor for questions. But before that, I would like to take up a few questions myself. Some perks and privileges of being the moderator. Uh, sir, the first point that came in, which just struck me, was that this whole question of menstruation as impurity and all, it gained a lot of traction on social media and in public discussions as well, especially after the Sabrimala issue. And in fact, in the title of your book, although the book is Menstruation Across Cultures, but it's written the Sabrimala Confusion, and then you go ahead and discuss menstruation across cultures. So I wanted to ask this, that there seems to be some sort of a disjuncture or some sort of a misunderstanding between how the court has perceived menstruation and between how our traditions perceive menstruation. And it also seems that the court's understanding of menstruation might be influenced or informed by Christian theology, obviously, because we are dealing here with an Anglo-Saxon legal system, and the language that they use, the entire setup, the discourses which go on in court are highly influenced by it. But I really couldn't understand that why did the court perceive the ban on women entry in Sabrimala as a question of impurity and untouchability as well, because one of the judges, he mentioned in the judgment that the practice of banning women entry is actually violative of Article 17 of the Indian Constitution, which is basically untouchability, and which was definitely an expansive, way too much expansive reading of Article 17, given its origins. So however, from your discussion, it seems that even if there is a notion of impurity, that is ritual impurity, that is related to menstruation, it remains only for the period when the women are menstruating. However, the ban on women entry in Sabrimala is for the entire menstruating age and not just for that period. So it clearly seems that the court could not understand the traditions in Sabrimala which were related to the brahmacharya of the deity and connected it with menstruation and hence impurity and untouchability. So if you could expand a bit on that as well.
Yes, thank you, Yashovardhan. I think your question kind of already answered it a bit, where the court went wrong, where most of us went wrong, because that is how the narrative has been built, that from A to B, the narrative is built in a certain way, but this whole path itself is problematic. It is without any basis. The ritual impurity, as you rightly said, it is with respect to only those 3 days. And of course, since this impurity is in the context of the pranamaya kosha and all, it is communicable in a ritualistic sense, and that is why the seclusion, non-touching is suggested in the shastras. And see, you will not come across any temple in India which actually puts a board saying menstruating women are prohibited from entering the temple. There is no such. Women have inherited this knowledge from their mothers from time immemorial, and they do self regulation. This has been happening in self regulation. In Japan, there is one place, I forgot the name, wherein there is such a board where specifically says menstruating women should not go up the hill. But we don't have it in India. In India, women practice it as a self regulation. But the fundamental concept is about ritual impurity, and that applies for only 3 or 4 days, right? In the Shabarimala case, two different concepts have been mixed up and completely trivialized. So the first thing, yes, from menarche to menopause, women are not supposed to. So menstruation is there in the picture in this sense that women between menarche and menopause are not allowed to enter the temple. But the reason here is not impurity. But the reason here is the deity of the temple, the Dharmashastra Ayyappa Swami, is a Naishtika Brahmachari. There are other Ayyappa Swami temples wherein he is not a Naishtika Brahmachari, and there no such restrictions are there. Men, women, children, old age women, everybody can. So, because he is a Naishtika Brahmachari, and Naishtika Brahmacharya means there are certain rules and regulations. If I were to practice Naishtika Brahmacharya, then I have to practice certain rules and regulations, which includes complete disassociation from women, adolescent women, women of bearing age, women who can who can have sexual desires, who can enter into sexual intercourse, or who are of bearing age, between menarche and menopause. So that rules applies to the deity also. He is a brahmachari, Naishtika brahmachari, but he can engage with the small children or old women who are like mothers, right? So because of his vow, this restriction of the women of childbearing age, you can say, between menarche and menopause, are prohibited from going. Now here we need to understand some concepts. What is the notion of Devalaya? What is a temple? And what is a deity? Temple, we call it as Devalaya. Deva Alaya means an abode of deity, house of the deity. That means the deity is present there. How is he present? When we say that there is Devata, it is not just a stone that is there. The Vigraha is the body of the deity, which is the life energy, the vitality, that is the Shakti of the deity flows through that Vigraha. We have infused it with life through the ritual of Prana Pratishtapana. And the Tattva of the deity also resides in the heart of the Vigraha. So there is Tattva and there is energy, Shakti. What is the Tattva of the Ayyappa Swami there? The special Tattva associated with in Shabarimala is Tattva of Brahmachari. Naishtika Brahmachari, Brahmachari. So the one aspect was, or of the restriction is of course the vow or the vrata of the deity. But the other aspect is that when we visit a temple, we become influenced by the energy and the tattva that is present in the temple. So men folk has to practice 41 days of brahmacharya to visit there, to make use of that energy, so that the energy there is not harmfully affecting them. But in the case of women, first of all, they cannot do for any 41 days vrata because of their monthly periods, which happens every 28-30 days. More importantly, women by their biology, I spoke about Sri Dharma, remember? Menstruation, pregnancy, all these are very much part of their Sri Dharma. Because this is their biology. And we cannot ignore their biology. Their body has been created by definition to help them perform certain biological functions in the form of mother, in the form of wife, in the form of mother, in the form of grandmother. This does not mean that they cannot be lawyer, doctor, etc. This simply means biologically they are designed to make certain functions. I can be a father, but I cannot be a mother. Similarly, women can be a mother, cannot be a father. So this being so, when women of between menarche and menopause of childbearing age enter the temple regularly again and again, the energy of the brahmacharya will affect them severely, will distort their menstruation process. Because as I said, Ayurveda says everything in the body is because of three doshas, Vata, Pitta, Kapha. And they act in a certain way to bring about monthly periods. They act in a certain way to ensure the biological process from ovulation to removal of non-fertilized egg, or from conception to giving birth to child happens in a certain way. All is because of the three doshas. But when there is a energy in a temple which is conducive to brahmacharya, it means that it will create certain changes in the body of the woman to, to make it better fit for brahmacharya. But body of the women is not fit for brahmacharya. Why? Because it is fit for her biological function is that of to become a mother. So this energy will affect that process. That is, it severely imbalances the menstrual process. No laboratory experiment can actually correlate this, because what is happening is at the level of Sukshma Sharira, at the level of vital body. And laboratory process, it can only measure what is happening at this physical level, at the physical body level. So the women may experience many disorientation in their menstrual cycle, but they will never be able to directly connect that with the temple visit. It is an experiential process. So that is why the prohibition is there, so that her health, her biological process is not interrupted. So she can go to temple from a purely bhakti point of view. Let me give another aspect. She visits the Ayyappa Swami when she is a 8-year kid, and then again she gets to chance to visit when she is 45 years. So she is waiting to visit for around 40 plus years. There is a Viraha Bhakti, this is called in Bhagavad Purana. She is waiting and waiting with all devotion retained within her for 40 years. Just imagine the height of devotion, the heightened condition of devotion she will be when she attains 45 years and finally gets a chance to go to the Sannidhi. This is called as Viraha Bhakti, and this itself is a form of austerity, it itself is a form of spiritual practice. So she is not kept away from spirituality. The mode of spirituality is different. If somebody asks, oh, even I am a devotee of Shabarimala, how can you keep me away? They are not keeping you away. It is a different mode of practice. And if you are fond of Shabarimala, if you're fond of Ayyappa Swami, there are other temples where you can visit, where he is not an Aishtaka Brahmachari. It is the same Ayyappa Swami, same Dharma Shastra, right? I hope this clarifies. So the menstruation thing was a red herring. It was not connected directly. It's an indirect connection, but it was deliberately given a twist as if somehow, the impurity comes into play here and all this.
Right, sir. Right. So I also had two more questions. One was that you mentioned while discussing the book, you mentioned that there is certain kind of shyness because it's something which is very private, and hence girls or women might not prefer discussing it publicly. But at the same time, you see that the traditions actually celebrate it publicly. So how do we understand this difference? Would you say that it is due to the discourses of modernity which are desacralized, that there is the shyness which causes them not to discuss in the public? And on the other hand, you see traditions which give it a certain religious idiom, a certain traditional notion, which make it easier to discuss and make it much more acceptable in a.
See, what is happening is in our traditional setup, so to speak, the shyness is with respect to a, a person's personal happenings. But when the same process is abstractized, sacredized, spiritualized, then in that sacredized and abstractized context, the shyness is not there, because you're not speaking about menstruation as your process, but as a cosmic sacred process. And in that context, people speak very quite freely. But the shyness is also a product of how things are discussed in the modernity. Also, that is also there. See, what I surprisingly learned when I studied this anthropological study of one scholar that he did in Odisha, among the rural women folk of Odisha, they were quite open to talk about this, and they were quite open to speak about menstruation in the context of the rituals, the release, the Raja Parba, Harachandi Puja, and as well as their own process. And they openly said, my Rajodharma is part of the cosmic process, and if I don't follow my lifestyle practices during menstruation, then I am affecting that cosmic process. So this is a sacred process to me. So you see here, there is no shyness, but you put it in the context of a school. First of all, they induce a particular kind of shyness in the school education by saying that only a scientific narrative is correct. I have seen certain documentaries wherein some schools girls were asked about menstruation, and she said in the typical Hindi some things about, I don't particularly remember. She gave it in a certain terminology, which was then portrayed as if it was ignorance, lack of education, and superstition, etc. But they were none of that. Actually, they used the terminologies which the traditions, which the communities have used to transmit certain knowledge in its own. Because the modern English education, the modernity does not understand the indigenous language of ritual, language of transmitting knowledge, and it does not appreciate, it does not even try to understand it, deliberately looks up down upon it. So that is why this whole problem has started. So obviously the girls will feel shy. First of all, some stranger comes to us and asks about, forget about menstruation. If some stranger comes to me and asks me about my say sexual activity, I don't feel comfortable to discuss. Why should I discuss it with anybody? It's my life, whatever it is. This is same. First of all, there is strangeness. There is stranger coming and discussing that, and then the stranger appears to put it in certain way that they look down upon the women, the girls. They feel certain kind of alienation already, and then in order to fit into that narrative, she has to behave in a certain way. So this is a very complicated thing, and we cannot pinpoint what is causing what. But the general fact is, as I understand it, the way Hindu Dharma celebrates and removes shyness is by abstractizing the concept. At the same time, also helping it to remain personal. How does it achieve it? By sacralizing it. by ritualizing it. So then there is both a public celebration, there is both a public discussion, but at the same time the personal aspect is also retained. This is not happening in today. This is happening in a different way and not that way, but in a secularized way. What we are saying, we are running all campaigns. Everybody should talk about menstruation. Men folk should talk about menstruation. But when I wrote the book, when I'm giving talks like this, there will always be somebody or the other in the audience who says, what right do I have as a man to discuss the topic? Why should I write on this topic? Why should I sermonize on this topic? I'm not doing sermonizing. I'm just telling the fact as it is, the religious view as it is. But I have heard these comments a multiple number of times. Why, as a man, I am discussing this topic? These same people, they say that men should discuss this topic. They are not able to decide what they want. This is a funny thing here.
Sir, so just a last question. I just had this query. I see that Madhukishwar ma'am wrote the last words for the book, and in her comments, she has mentioned that the book would have means you could have also added this portion in your book where you could have discussed women sages, scholars, etc., who had something to say on the subject. And because our Indic culture has deep matriarchal roots, so it would have gained a lot. So, did you explore something on these lines as?
See, yeah, that's a good question. There are two things here. First of all, I have my own limitations, so to speak. India is a very vast country with very diverse languages. I'm sure there will be some or the other literature written in many different languages, but I am not conversant with any of those languages. I know only Kannada and English and Hindi. So I was not able to access any of those literature to even examine. And secondly, I focused my attention on the religious traditions, on the traditions such as Dharma Shastras, the Vedas, the Puranas, the Ayurvedic texts. So, because the focus was such that uh, these traditions, the predominant of the authors are men, and that is how it has been historically. It is not that women were sidelined or removed from discussion or something like that. It is simply how things have developed. This notion is a modernity, the notion that everybody has to do everything is a notion of modernity. This was not the notion in a pre-modern society. Everybody did not do everything. Everybody had a fixed role in their life. Everybody had a fixed role in society. Everybody did what they was best for them. Everybody did what was assigned for them. So the domain of the Shastras, the domain of the writing of the Shastras and Shastrarthas, men are predominant. It is not that women are not there, but they are very minuscule. There is because even, if you say women are not there, I can show even today there are women vacharthas happening, discussing on Shastra topics. So women were there, but they were comparatively small in number, and they did not write on this topic. I mean, I cannot help go back and change that they did not write on this topic, because there are hundreds of topics to write. This was something, this is a topic which was very obvious. At homes, see, not all knowledge needs to be written. That is one thing. We are an oral culture. We are an oral tradition. The knowledge such as Rajaswala practices, they always passed on from mother to daughter, grandmother to granddaughter in matriarchal, in a motherly line. And because it was kind of practice oriented, it was not necessary that the essays had to be written. Nevertheless, when the Dharma Shastra writers, the Smriti writers wrote their Smritis, and the Dharma Shastras deliberated upon this, when they spoke about Stri Dharma, they included a small section on Rajaswala Dharma. But it is just a small section. You don't find 100 pages on my book is only my book is that big, 350 pages. The Shastragnas don't write that way because there was no need. I had to write this book because for last 200 years we have become alienated from our culture. We have lost that transmission, because somehow when the over the time when things keep transmitting in practice, the philosophical, the explanations behind that practice become lost. This has happened in the last 200 years. So we think that all our practices are superstition, outdated. So I had to write this book. But how did I write? By reading Satra authorities. So because of my inability to study all regional languages and the text to examine whether there is something on this topic or not, and also because I had a time deadline to write the book, I could not have taken 10 years, 15 years to actually write the book. And as well as the fact that this idea that everybody has to write on everything is a modernity idea plus 200 years. That was not so. So women were too busy then. Just imagine the kind of work they had in the family setup. They did not had grinders. They did not have mixers. No, they had to you do all the things manually. So their schedule was fully fixed, fully occupied. Very few women who were able to make time to write poetry. We have so many poetess in the Indian tradition who had written very wonderful kavyas. But not everybody had that privilege. And those women in the role of ganikas and all, they were focused on arts and music and dance, so much so that even they did not have inclination or interest to write text on menstruation. So this is how it has been, fortunately or unfortunately, you can say. So, but yeah, but of course, as years go by, if I find something, and if somebody knows in the audience or somewhere, you can share reference from Indian language or anything from the text. You pass it on to me. Someday I may bring out a second edition with added material. I will definitely love to do that.
Definitely, sir. We'll be looking forward to that as well. So we have one question from Aditi. She says, Nitinji, why do some of the Devis have yearly menstruation as opposed to how women have monthly? And the red liquid that comes out of Kamakhya Ma, what is it? How does it come? Apologies, I arrived late from work into this meeting. So if you have already covered this before, then you don't have to repeat for me. That's fine. So
Yeah, I'll just quickly answer them. I Am I audible? I think there are no all questions do not have answers, especially the questions of why. This is especially true in the context of religious tradition. Why Mother Kamakya menstruates only once a year and not every month? Actually, there is no answer. Considering from the perspective of Kamakya, who is a cosmic deity, 1 year is nothing for her. It's like a one day. You know, for the Devatas, the Manusmriti and other Dharmashastras, Puranas say, 1 year of a human 1 year is 1 day of a Devata. So if I had to extrapolate that to Kamakya, that is the wrong extrapolation, let me say, because Kamakya is a notch above the notion of Devatas that we have in the here, in the notion of Devatas in the Puranas. But anyways, even if you do that, then she is menstruating every day from her perspective for a few seconds, few milliseconds. It may be 1 year for her, but for her it is a 1 day, right? And that a few seconds in a day. The point I'm trying to say is we should, this why has no answer. Honestly, this has no answer. It is how it is. It is so because it is said it is so. We have to have understanding and shraddha in that. And that red liquid, see, again, this is a question of, see, for a shraddhalu, for the bhakta, that is her menstrual discharge, and that is a prasadam. But now, for if you the question you are asking is of a scientific domain, and I think there are some studies about it being a hot spring, and there are certain kind of the geology of the place causes that water that comes out to be in red in color. I think there are papers on this. If you search on the net, you will get the correct answer. Since this does not interest me, I have not researched this very detailed so that I cannot give a exact answer, but I have heard that this is the answer from scientific perspective. So you will find all kinds of scientific explanations for all this natural phenomenon, this sacred phenomenon, but they do not capture the essence that Kamakya is there. It is a Yonipitam of Kamakya. It does not matter how what the geological explanation is. There is Devi in it, there, because Devi can manifest in hundreds of forms, including as natural hot springs, and including as a natural hot springs which is red in color. So, for a practicing Hindu, what matters is that it is a prasada for the deity, and we celebrate a festival called Ambubachi, wherein her menstruation is celebrated, and we connect our menstruation, the women folk connect the human menstruation with that cosmic menstruation. They see the human menstruation as an extension of that cosmic menstruation, and hence the human menstruation, the human life, as an inseparable part of the cosmos. So, this is the teaching that interests me and that should interest you also. Because this is the essence, this is the reality which is actually real. The others are merely inessential facts. The reality is this, that we are all inseparable part of this cosmos, inseparable part of the divine order. And what we do, that action has cosmic consequences. And as a result, we have to live a dharmic life. We have to establish a connection with the Devata and benefit from it. So this is the essence of the teaching. I hope I gave some thoughts for thinking to sway you away from a materialistic, a so-called scientific or perspective to a more philosophical, more reflective, more spiritual thinking, because that is the essence of Dharma.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for answering that. And Aditi has also commented that she actually wanted to know the dharmic reason only. I think there are no more questions. People haven't posted anything. So we can end the session here now. And sir, thank you once again. Thank you so much for taking out time to deliver this talk and to interact with us. And we are really very grateful to you for the same. And thank you all the participants for being here today. So I thank you on behalf of our faculty coordinator, that is Professor Shayan Mukherjee. Our other faculty coordinator, Professor Soumya Dey, has recently left JGU and joined Rashram School of Public Leadership at Rishi Hood University, which is in Sonipat only. And I also thank you on behalf of Siddhant Dubey, who is a student coordinator. Yes, the session has been recorded and it will be posted on YouTube. The link will be available, so you can directly search Indic Studies Society page on YouTube, or if you do not get it, you can contact me. We'll also be posting the link on our Insta page as well. So thank you everyone, thank you once again. We can end the recording here. Keshav ji, recording हम यहाँ पे end कर सकते हैं.